Well, the world of financial services is changing fundamentally, and it wasn't long ago when you'd have to go to a branch and stand in a queue on a Saturday morning for a couple of hours just to find out what your bank balance was. Nowadays, you can do practically anything on a smartphone, on a cell phone, via a computer. You can do almost anything when it comes to financial services. How scary is that for you, Mike Brown?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us. The ability for us to interact digitally with our customers, the opportunities that gives us as a business to have better customer relationships, better customer service, more efficiencies in our back office environment. I think it's one of the most exciting things that's currently underway in the banking environment.
That's all fine in the old world environment and make it cheaper to run an old school bank with old legacy systems and everything else. What you're seeing happen, though, is the emergence of new financial services players that don't have the legacy systems. They don't have the costly branch networks, the tens of thousands of people that it takes to run those systems. They're coming for you, maybe still quite some way off, but they're coming for you, aren't they?
They're absolutely coming for us, and we are more than ready for them. Certainly as an organization, we've been on a multi-year journey to transform our own technology systems to be more digital and more agile. And we're getting towards the closing end of that journey. So we think that our current tech environment is pretty much as good, if not better, than most of these startups are going to have. We certainly have the enormous advantage of incumbency. We have a business that has 8 million customers. Nedbank last year made 11.7 billion rand of profits. We have the ability to spend roughly 2 billion rand a year on new technology. That's not just running our existing tech in the businesses. That's what we're putting out the door to create a better experience for our customers and run the bank better. So certainly I think for existing incumbents who are investing in their digital journeys, as the new technology becomes available, we're able to buy it, implement it back into our systems. I think it's a really exciting time to be an incumbent. And I think a lot of the startups are going to find it actually very easy to develop the technology. What's much harder is to actually deploy that at scale and grow your clients.
Scale is what is so important in this because it takes a long time to build scale. You'll get some early adopters. Those who've been around long enough will remember a cheeky little startup called 2020, which operated off the Sambo platform. And it did very well, but it sort of hit 40,000 customers 20 years ago and plateaued after that. And then when Sambo went, so did, unfortunately, 2020. Perhaps it's different this time. Maybe it's 100,000 or 200,000 early adopters. Is that not a significant disruptor in your environment?
It's definitely a disruptor, but I think if you look at examples all over the world, most businesses that have set up a digital shop next door, that digital shop next door, be it the Eggs or the Smiles, etc.
These are all names of banks, of course. Egg and Smile were names of banks, not really traditional bank names.
Absolutely, but they were owned by existing incumbents who chose not to digitize from within. They chose the model of setting up their own digital competitor next door.
And that was fun for a while, but didn't really work because there wasn't the integration that was required to make it a sustainable long-term strategy.
Exactly right. None of them were able to get to scale. They got all the early adopters and couldn't get to scale. So we've taken a very deliberate approach to digitize from within. It's a lot more complicated and it takes more time, but we believe it's absolutely more sustainable than the setup on the side.
Do you see success, and you can choose to measure success any way you like, for Michael Udan, for Adrian Gore, who are the two most likely contenders to set up something a bit scary for you?
I think they will both be successful. To what scale, time will tell. They're both run by very smart people. They've got some money behind them. I think Discovery a lot more money than Michael Udan's setup. And Discovery access to a customer base, an existing customer base that they can leverage off. So, we would certainly at this stage think that Discovery is more likely to be a stronger competitor than Bank Zero. But we're certainly not going to not be awake as to what both of them do in the market.
You're dealing daily with regulation, with politics, with the threat of a potentially dysfunctional society, with the real risk of competitors coming in and stealing at least maybe your dessert, not the whole lunch, but making your life a bit uncomfortable. What's bothering you most right now as the CEO of one of the biggest banks in the country?
No, look, I think the key things in front of us right now would be the macroeconomic environment in South Africa, and how our country is able to turn from the difficult few years that we've had and the activist few years to a society that builds a nation, that builds something better for the future rather than...
In practical terms, how do you do it, though? Because the president has asked a whole bunch of luminaries, South African luminaries, including Jacko Marie and others, to go and get $100 billion in foreign direct investment in the next 5 years. How do you make a contribution to that? Because so many South Africans say, foreigners must come and invest here and can't wait to offshore their money out of the country. There's an hypocrisy as a South African on that basis.
So, practically, 2 examples. So, one thing we do is continue to invest in our own business in South Africa, because foreigners won't invest unless they can see domestic businesses investing and growing. I said to you earlier, we're investing about just more than 2 billion rand a year in new technology. We've been doing that for the last year, and we're likely to do that for the next 2 or 3 years. So there's a very deliberate investment to grow our franchise. And then we also, as a business, I think play at least, if not more than our fair share of our role on things like the CEO initiative, Business Leadership South Africa. We've seconded a resource now full-time to work alongside the investment czars for the investment summit, again, at no cost to anybody. So, we certainly do try and do our fair share in enabling that.
Opening the lending taps a little bit, making it easier for people to access credit. That'll be a big criticism of banks in perpetuity, I suspect.
Well, I think if you look at it right now, and if you took a really big helicopter view and you have a retail market and a wholesale market, the retail South Africa is still relatively highly indebted. So opening the lending taps is probably not a good idea in that environment. Could you grow retail advances slightly faster this year than you did last year? Yes. And we're currently doing that. We can see growth rates in retail advances picking up slowly. So there's a very slight opening of the taps there. On the wholesale side of our business, the problem is not at all a credit appetite or risk opening of taps debate. The real challenge is corporate South Africa finding projects that they need to invest in. It's a lack of demand, not a lack of supply.
Is that lack of demand driven by uncertainty?
Yes, I think it is. It's driven by uncertainty on the one hand, excess capacity on the other hand.
Mike Brown, thank you very much indeed. Mike Brown, Chief Executive of Nedbank. Thank you for watching this edition of Taking Stock right here on ENCA.